Estamos todos aqui ansiosos. E a quarta temporada, ela vem cheia de particularidades, a começar pelo nome, Terra, Noturna, que já indica pra gente que esses episódios vão vir cheios de drama, suspense e mistério. E o enredo começa em uma longa noite de inverno na cidade de Ennis, no Alasca, quando 8 homens que trabalham em uma estação de pesquisa desaparecem sem deixar rastros. A missão de investigar esse caso fica com a dupla de detetives Liz Danvers e Evangeline Navarro, que não se dão lá muito bem, a gente já sabe como funciona essa dupla dinâmica em True Detective, né? E elas ainda precisam investigar questões internas para chegar à verdade do caso. Eu gostaria de convidar ao palco a diretora e produtora executiva Issa López e as protagonistas Jodie e Reis para falar com vocês sobre a série.
Hi everyone, buenos dias.
Thank you so much. So to start off this special conversation, we've received some questions from you guys. So if you're here at the audience, please raise your hand. And so the talents can see you guys. So this first question is from Luisa Vilela Izami. She's not here, I know already. This is the first season of True Detective, starred, directed, produced, and written by more women. So how does it feel to act alongside Reis while being directed by Issa López? And what implications or impacts did their performance have on you as an actress and fellow director? It's for Jodie, but you all can answer.
I didn't act.
It's for...
Is this an invitation to act with me? You go. Can you say that again? I was like, oh, this one's for Issa. I don't have to listen.
So,
The impact of women.
yes, and what did the performance have on you as an actress and fellow director? Working with it.
Well, we're all excited. There's more women in Hollywood. When I was growing up making films, from the 60s on, there were no women. So there was just like whoever the lady was that was playing my mom and possibly a makeup artist or a script supervisor. And little by little, there became more technicians. And the last bastion was the most important, of course, female directors. There were virtually no female directors when I was coming up, probably into my 30s. I can name them maybe on one hand. There always had been in Europe and in other countries, but for some reason, for America, for mainstream filmmaking, there really were almost no women. So I grew up thinking that I couldn't be a film director because I didn't see any women, and then eventually my mom kept telling me, she was like, you have to write. They'll never let you direct unless you write. I thought, well, I don't really write, and it turns out that, the women that came up, the few women that came up, helped other women to come up, and there's, been great strides made in that now, and now I think the most exciting movies of the year are all directed by women. So, yes, we like that, and we're glad that HBO is at the forefront of being interested in new voices, different stories, centering women's experiences in ways that hasn't happened before.
Would you like to comment on that? Yes.
I will second. Fuck yes. Yeah. I grew up in Mexico, and we did have a legendary Mexican film director in the 40s, Matilde Landeta. But that was it. It was the legend of Matilde Landeta. And then in the 70s, we did have Marcela Fernandez and a couple of next, but it was, I would say, one in a generation, So I'm old enough to be at the forefront of the start of women taking over. And I have to say, we're seeing it in Hollywood. We're seeing it in Latin America. The best movies that Mexico is sending out into the world, and many of the Latin Americans are directed by women. And it's bound to be that a voice that hasn't been heard forever has really interesting things to say. And we're seeing the effect of that.
Yeah, and this is one's for you, Issa. It's from Gabriel Avila, Jovem Nerd, I believe he's there.
Hi, Gabriel.
The other seasons have drawn on different inspirations such as anime and even comic books. So what are the main ones for Night Country?
The other seasons were inspired by anime.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, Gabriel, you have to tell me that one. And I'm jealous. Well, here's what happened. When I got the call about True Detective, I sat down and watched it again. I hadn't seen it since it came out on TV, and I watched it week by week, like probably most of us. Loved it. And I saw it again, and I started to do it with a clinical eye, not as an audience. And I did see immediately a lot of influence, and I don't know if Nipi Solato did it consciously or not, but there's a lot of Seven in that first season. I love Seven, I think we all do. And Seven immediately took me back to the movie that made Seven, which I believe is The Silence of the Lambs, another movie that created a whole genre. And I decided to lean very hard on those two, like very, very hard. And but I knew that it was central to bring something new to it, which we will surely get into all of what's new. Other than that, my personal geekness was impossible to stop, and there's a lot of John Carpenter's I think. There are homages to The Shining in the way we shot the Arctic Research Station. It's a little bit all over the place and a lot of different flavors in a very Mexican cooking kind of way.
That's good. This one is for Jodie. It's from Maria Najar, in Brasil. She's here. Okay. So True Detective is a series that draws heavily from the genre. Even so, you managed to be remembered for different character styles. How would you describe your character, Liz Danvers?
Let's see.
Tell the truth.
Well, I love Liz Danvers. Love this character because she's honest. And that means that she's also an asshole a lot of the time. She is not awake, I think. She's quite unconscious of her own motivations. She doesn't know how she affects people. She thinks things are funny that aren't funny. Yeah, I just love her. She's let's see. I mean, she's in one way. You can tell that she really cares about some of the people in the film. I guess, am I allowed to? No, we're not. Am I allowed to say what it's about and all that? Well, we have a trailer, so I guess people know that.
Just a tiny bit.
Just a tiny bit. So, she has love in her heart, and the world has changed in ways that she doesn't understand, and she's having to keep up with, I think, like all of us. But honestly, for me, and the most interesting part of making the movie was to support a new voice, which is Kaylee's character in the film, Navarro's character. And I think even when we first started talking about the series with Issa, we sort of, I feel like I reverse engineered Liz Danvers, where we were like, okay, well, what is Navarro gonna do? Let's make Liz do the opposite. And we kind of reversed it so that really the voice of the film is Kaylee's character, Trooper Navarro. I call her Trooper Navarro a lot in the film as well.
And this one is for Kaylee. From Marcel Botelho. Are you here? Yes. Yeah. Estação Nerd. From what we've seen so far, this new season seems to have a heavy suspense, even with elements of horror. What was it like for you to be part of the production of your third audiovisual project?
I mean, it was such an amazing experience, and what better way to get into this amazing industry than to have these amazing women leading the way and learning from them also. I was picking Jodie's brain, like, what do they mean when they say this? It was just such a comfortable, amazing experience, especially for such a large project and something that I'm just kind of getting launched into in such a genre that's so heavy and so layered. But it was a pleasant experience. It was hard, but it was a story that I was very pleased and honored to tell, and just to work with the story. I mean, Issa created such a story that, every word jumped off the page. I'm very visual, so I could see what she was seeing, but I didn't see it until I was in the room doing the scenes and having those discussions. So it was just an amazing experience, and from such care from the characters to the setting to the especially the culture from where it's based. It was just an amazing experience, which made what I didn't know about this industry yet such a pleasant surprise, and I'm just excited to share with the world and just continue to learn more.
Thank you. And this one is for Issa. It's from Nayeli Hamides from El Dorado, Mexico. The show portrays a lot of social problems and dynamics in a very particular context that speaks to a broad audience. How was the writing process for you and your co-writers to portray a story set so far away? How was the writing process for you and your co-writers to portray a story set so far away?
Well, when I decided to go for unknown reasons to myself into setting this in the Arctic, I'm Mexican, I hate the cold. I don't understand what's wrong with me, and I think I need therapy. But this all happened during the pandemic. So in a different context, I would have immediately packed my bags, go there, move there, and written the whole thing there. We did have what was called, and has disappeared now for the good of everyone, a mini room of writers, and we did it through Zoom. So we had one writer in London, and she's a Muslim woman, and we had a woman in Minnesota, and we had a couple of writers in Los Angeles, and I was in Mexico at times. So we were everywhere, and I wish deeply that I could have been in the communities I inspired, the fictional town we created, but it was impossible to go there, and Alaska had very high numbers with the COVID situation. So the moment that the COVID situation allowed, I jumped in a plane with my producers, with the production designer who was going to reproduce the feeling of those towns, and went to Alaska and be there and talk to the people, ate with them, went out into the frozen ocean with them. We experienced that. In the meantime, what I did was I would write every word listening to the radio stations of these little towns. And the beauty of the pretty horrible social media, because it's mostly horrible, but there are some good things, is that people in these towns, during the winter especially, they're bored out of their minds. So what they do is they record their lives. They record themselves going to the supermarket, going to pick up the mail, going to buy alcohol. And there's endless hours in TikTok, in YouTube, of these people and their voices and their little stores and the way they drink together was in my brain. So when I was there, it was the weirdest feeling because I knew exactly where to turn left to get to a place. It was very familiar. And so yeah, technology helped, the pandemic didn't, but here we are.
This one is to all of you from Perfil, Juan Manuel Dominguez in Argentina. How do you guys define the essence of the True Detective series, and how does that apply to the present days?
Oh, that's a really hard question. Who asked that one?
Argentina, no, he's
Argentina.
not here. He's not even here.
Wow, that's kind of an easy question. That's huge.
Well, I think it's a question for the three of us because I've always said True Detective is made by three things: is two main characters trying to solve a crime, not understanding that what they're trying to solve is their own souls and their own secrets, and the place where they do it. Now finding and brilliant casting. I think that's what that first season did so well. And the biggest part of the challenge, other than a little plot, who cares about the plot? It's fun, but it's the characters. Is finding the people to play them and the chemistry between them. And the moment that you see them together you really want to see the series, you know. And finding, getting Jodie to revisit a detective, and then trying to understand who is going to amp that and make it into True Detective. Because without that Navarro, it would have never happened. So it's honestly on the, I found them, and then it was like, that's on you. So.
You know, I guess I agree with everything that Issa said, so I'd really just like to let her go with it. But I did, while I was doing Silence of the Lambs, I did feel like I had an understanding that that plots are really just excuses for characters to reveal themselves to each other and to themselves. They're excuses for this kind of intimacy between people, and how their own psyches are the point of the film. I guess that's what this particular genre is you know, the reason that you find the killer is that you immerse yourself in the loves, the loss, the beauty, the disappointments of these characters, to the point that to the people that are gone, that's what these detectives do, is that they immerse themselves, that they become one with either the killer or the people who are killed. So it's through that understanding of their world that they come to an understanding of themselves, and that's really, you know, the whole point of the genre, I think. And I guess I haven't been as excited about something since Silence of the Lambs as I am about True Detective. I feel like I don't want to say we stumbled, because we didn't stumble. It was all very intentional. It was all in Issa López's head. But there were so many truths that were able to be uncovered through the process of understanding this film that it's felt like one of the richest experiences of my life.
You have to say that it was too.
Yeah. What did I say? I said everything that was said. No, I mean, being a fan of the True Detective series and some kind of the unpredictability of something like a True Detective, and then you have these individuals that have this deep pool of just stuff that you don't even know. It's very unpredictable. On the surface, they can look like a well put together, very good detective. You have one that's maybe, you know, more detective than the other one's a little loose cannon, but then you take those two personalities and you have this amazing chemistry that just works. It probably wouldn't work in a friendship, but it works. But it's like a bad relationship that just works in it. When it doesn't, it does, but when it does, it really, really works. And just that, mix that and kind of the dance of the unpredictability of, like you said, the plot is there, but then you have these two very, very deep characters with their own, you know, their own lives that have to put it aside almost to solve this crime, but they can't help but to be immersed in each other's lives, to have that balance and that vision, to have that common goal. So I just think that whole that theme is just, it's really attractive and it's intriguing, and you want to know, you think you know, and you probably do, but the way it's presented is so unpredictable.
Thank you. And this one is for Issa. It's from Sergio Villamizar from Colprensa, Colombia. Is the form or production style of True Detective different from other series?
From other series in TV, or from other series in True Detective, which is...
I think you can comment on both.
Well, it is... Here's the thing about jumping into a certain genre. It has rules, you know, and I sadly had to write a lot of romantic comedies in my life. Do not watch those. But it has rules, you know, the rules in romantic comedy. And by the way, this is a romantic comedy because apparently so I know what to do. So it is a love story of true friendship between two women that hate each other but love each other, and they only come together to find that. So the rule in romantic comedy is they meet, they on meet, they find each other again. The rule of genre is pretty much the same, you know. It's unsolvable mystery that weirdly enough is solvable, and in the way we're going to learn things about the characters. In that frame, you have to do something that feels like a thing you've never seen before, and it's tricky. So you go into, oh, we're going to have the disenchanted detective in a small town. It's been done. We're going to have the badass who actually has a huge heart. It's been done. So how are we going to make that into something you haven't seen before? And it's all in the details. It's all in how you shoot it, where you shoot it, how you construct it, those layers, how deep you go with your work, with your actors, with the work in the script. So it's similar to miniseries. It's different to miniseries. And the True Detective itself, it also has its rules. HBO beautifully gave me absolute freedom into which ones I wanted to keep. But it deals with the past, a case in the past. It deals with a case in the present. It's two characters. It's, there's at least, and I decided to go with it, a couple of moments where they're in a car discussing the nature of the universe and life. So I took certain things and very much went with them to make this series.
Thank you. And this one is from Marina Bonini, the King. She's right there. Is to Jodie and Kaylee. What was the most difficult moment while filming the fourth season? Were there any hardships, perhaps the cold, that made you ask for a break from shooting or even force you to stop?
Wow, where do I start? No, it was, the easiest thing was just being so comfortable having such a wonderful counterpart and learning so much and just making me feel comfortable to take those chances and just do what naturally came with the character. I mean, the cold, it was cold. It was, if it looks cold, it was cold. There's not much acting there, but I would say I guess the biggest challenge was when things weren't as cold, but we had to be cold. Mm-hmm. That was the most challenging because there was so many other things to worry about. And then I'd hear Issa, "You're cold!" I'm like, I'm cold. It's probably the most challenging, but like I said, the way the story's written, I didn't have to reach too far to get those things. So that was a pleasure.
It was cold. And I mean, especially for Kaylee. Kaylee had a lot more exterior scenes than I did, and you had the frozen leg, and you got unlucky. There were some days that were just windy and freezing, and where we all had to leave by midnight because there was a massive storm coming in, and you guys had more of that than I did. For some reason, I got lucky. I feel like there was about 8 or 10 days where I got sick and I lost my voice, and those were the worst days of the film. So I managed to escape those. I think, it's hard. It's sort of like childbirth. I think you forget how difficult it was. And mostly because I love the characters so much. I loved working with this team so much. Loved working with Issa, my favorite director I've ever worked with, I think. Which is I've worked with a lot of directors.
And some of them not bad.
Not bad. And, just being with Kaylee, and from the second that I met Kaylee, I was just so in love, impressed, full of respect for her power on screen. And it doesn't matter that she's only done it a few times. It's like she has this uncanny ability to just command the screen that you just can't stop watching her. And Navarro is such a peculiar character, so filled with contradictions. This incredible, tough hothead that could kill you with one punch, and also somebody who is the most sensitive person certainly in the movie. Those are all the reasons why I was there.
Thank you. And this one is from Mario Abner, Reforma, México.
Mario, no me está oyendo, ¿verdad?
Yo conozco Mario. Besos, Mario. This one is for you. So the story is set in Alaska and it features American actors, but I was wondering how much of your Latin American sensitivity is in True Detective.
All of it.
Yeah.
It's the most Mexican thing I've ever done, I think. It's so Mexican in the weirdest ways, and I think Latin Americans around the world are going to see it and feel like, oh yeah, oh I know, you know. It doesn't matter where it takes place, it matters the spirit it comes from. And I knew very quickly that Navarro, initially in my original plan, Navarro is a Latina 100%. And then the deeper I went into understanding Alaska and understanding these communities, the more I knew that this character had to be from that ethnicity, out of respect, out of love for the people I met. So I turned it into that, but I still gave her a Dominican father and kept her Navarro to give her some of that. She's a Marine, which happens a lot with people in Alaska. They go to war for America, and a lot of the soldiers in these wars are also Latinos, which is interesting and profound. I think it's something to think about. But the things, especially the things these two characters go through, are incredibly personal to me, both of them. And that comes from the place I grew up in, and that comes from the food I ate, and the way they talk. They talk in English, but deep down that's Mexican. So yeah, all of it is.
Good. This one is from Larissa Isabelli Estrelando. I don't know if she's here. There. To Jodie and Kaylee. We know that True Detective has a tendency to feature different protagonists who, more often than not, don't get along. How will Liz Danvers and Evangeline Navarro act in this sense?
How what?
How will Liz,
Okay.
and Evangeline act in this sense?
Yeah, we hate each other in the beginning, but there's always that respect. I think that's also a feature of True Detective, is that no matter how much they hate each other and how much they roll their eyes at one another, that they have full respect for who the other person is as detective, because the other one is as obsessed as they are. The other one is as damaged as they are, and I think that is their connection, is their damage. I feel like both characters have a lot to learn from each other, and Issa did a really smart thing by, in some ways, having their journeys be sort of a shadow journey. My character's, awakening, and Navarro's character is learning to manage the fear around how awake she is, and so they're sort of like shadow journeys. Yeah. There you go.
They hate each other like completely, but it's I think they hate each other because they understand each other so well. And then there's that other aspect where they have no idea who the other person is, so they're intrigued to still learn even though they hate each other. And also, I love the aspect of they work so good together that it just has to happen. But Danvers knows how to push Navarro's buttons, and they bring out certain elements in each other that normally they wouldn't show to people. You know what I mean? Like, Danvers is an asshole, and Navarro is such a badass with a big heart. But like, even in the instance of like her being an asshole, you see her heart because like she'll get offended. Like it's so interesting, and it's just this balance and this dance. But we definitely kept it true to True Detective as far as they can't stand each other. It's actually pretty funny.
But they love each other. They do.
This one is from Nelson Quiroz, Radio ADN, Chile. It's to Jodie.
Okay.
You have experience portraying of working with monsters on screen. What is the most challenging thing about telling this kind of stories?
Well, I love them. I'm somebody who's wedded to drama. I love drama, and I love going to the deeper, darker parts of the soul, and for me, that's just so much fun. That's why I make movies. It's why I go see films, to inhabit that space. Yeah, I mean, monsters. One of the best things about Silence of the Lambs is that in the relationship between Lecter and Clarice is that she doesn't think of him as a monster. She wants to understand him and doesn't see him, she sees him as entirely human. Whereas the other characters have put him in a box of, this is a monstrous person that, doesn't deserve to live, and she believes, she wants to know him in order to know him as the way to solve the crime. And I think that's also true of anybody who's excellent as a detective, is that they have to respect the killer and to understand the killer's motivations, and only by understanding them and by giving the respect of seeing them as a human being will they be able to understand and finish the crime and finish the detection.
And ask the right questions.
And ask the right questions, yeah.
And this is from Talita Alencar, Poppy Line. Yes, over there. It's to all of you. We're here in Brazil. In your opinion, what makes True Detective universal?
Y'all looking at Navarro. It's the characters, and not just Navarro and Dares. I think there's so many characters that are relatable. Like, I think everybody everywhere can find a character that they can relate to. These feelings have no prejudice. It's not, you're not just a certain way from a certain region. Those emotions, those feelings, getting obsessed and drawn into a good story is universal. It doesn't have to be one area. So I think that this story definitely does that, with the happy parts, the sad parts, the angry parts. I mean, there's so many things that happen around the world that is very, very relatable in this story.
And I'd just like to add, just because we haven't touched on it yet, this is an Indigenous environment, story of Indigenous people where their lives are centered, their voices are centered. And I think there's a lot of discussion about that, and a lot of discussion about representation for Native people. And I think this film, I say film, but it's a show, whatever, it's the same thing. It's a long film. That there's something just incredibly refreshing and beautiful and universal about seeing the Indigenous experience as a universal experience. So in our show, except for me and Finn, I think we're pretty much the only non-Indigenous people in the film, mostly. Well, there are a few here and there, but you see every aspect of Indigenous life, from the funny guy to the annoying guy to the woman who has a bunch of kids to the high school teacher. Everybody's lives, everybody in this community is Indigenous, and bring with them the generational history that the Indigenous people live through in that area.
And there's themes that I think are sadly universal in the show. It does deal with missing women and their horrible fates, and that happens all over the world, and in Latin America we're very familiar with it. Of the 4 movies I directed, 2 of them deal with that. So it permeates, and it's an important component of what True Detective is. Communities that have lost their environment because of rabid capitalism, it's there. And in the simple themes that we've already discussed, burying our secrets under, in this case, a very thick layer of ice that is frozen and it's unbreakable until it melts, until it breaks, and we access them, and that's universal. Being unable to say the things that we need to say to other people, needing completion in someone that we can no longer tolerate in our lives. All of those things are going to be recognized around the world, and I think definitely in Latin America.
And also our relationship with nature. It deals a lot with our relationship with nature and the ramifications of human contact with nature, and that's a big universal theme as well.
So the last question is from me. I would like for you to comment on costume design, production design, and cinematography, because I think the series has a very specific aesthetic. So, please.
Well, I had the most formidable, lovely team of people I want to work forever with. My production designer, we had worked together in a TV project I directed in the UK before, and we talked to many production designers, and who immediately jumped out because of the depth he went in with the Alaskan themes, and the fact that as we ended up doing, we would have to translate Alaska and a very specific flavor of Alaska into a European country, not only European country, Scandinavian country, and it's very different. So someone who could understand the American side, but understand how to work in Europe emerged, and that was Daniel Taylor. He's emerging and doing, Argyle is coming out, and he did Tetris, and he's genius and lovely to work with. And then for costume design, we had Alex Robert, who has done White Lotus with HBO, a series that also deals with the clash between two cultures. So I think that she was a really good candidate for this. And she did Nope with Bill, and I still think about that sweatshirt. I think we all do. And she worked, both Daniel and her worked hand in hand with the Inuit advisors and the elders from the tribe, and the graphic elements were created by artists in Alaska. And the clothes were brought directly from Alaska. Alex went there and spent almost a month with the people from Alaska, either buying the stuff, but I'm talking from the right jeans and the right shoes to the parkas that are handmade with wolf fur on them. And then some items you cannot make anymore, they're traditional. So the people from these communities gave us to use in the series their ancestral items, and then we had to return them. Very like, here it is, thank you so much. So it was very involved, and we had to find people that could understand the depth of the collaboration. And then Florian Hofmeister, who is the VP of the series, he did Tar before this. I hadn't seen Tar when I gave him the job, and it blew my mind what he did with the photography in that movie. But I had seen the Terror and Pachinko and several things he's done. He knew how to work in the ice, which for me was a big thing. And I talked to many incredible photographers, many of them Latin American, and my heart was like, I'm gonna go with a Latino. But then this German comes along, and his vision and his depth and the understanding of the story and the characters completely gave him the job. I mean, we finished that Zoom and I was like, he's the guy, but he's the guy. And truly not shying away from the dark in the series, but leaning on it. So the dark is present obviously in the exterior night, but inside of the rooms, there's always a part that is completely black. I'm gonna say infect, but it's more like infuses and informs every frame in the show, and that's Florian. So I love these three people. I really do, and I think they made me and these women look really good. So.
And for you too, how was the experience with costume and cinematography?
I mean, amazing. It's just a great team. And a team isn't just people with independent skills, it's how they work together. Our costume was great because it was actually pretty warm. And I was worried about that. I was just like, I don't want it to look good and not be warm, so that was great. But Florian is extraordinary, and Dan, amazing production designer, and Issa's, I mean, they were all lucky to find each other, and we all had a lot of fun. We haven't talked about that yet. We had a lot of fun, which is also part of it. Hard to believe because it was such difficult circumstances. But, you know, Reykjavik is a fun town, and we all just really love each other. Yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing to see what they did with the production. The sets actually felt just like it was uncanny how identical it was. You felt like you were in these houses that needed to prepare for winter, to pack all these products. Like, they went, every little thing, like Issa said, was in the detail. And Florian, I love him. I was always Sergeant Navarro every morning, and he just had a way of just like they said, capturing such hard shots. And I don't know the first thing about being a DP, but I know it looks good as an audience member. And even just seeing things that, you know, just playbacks, I'm just like, how do you see that? Like, you know what I mean? So, then the costumes, so authentic. I mean, we had, like Issa said, we had actual uniforms. We had the vest that was made by the people in Alaska for the troopers, like down to the boots and the hats. Everything that they had was so detail oriented that we were in Alaska as far as I'm concerned. So, and we were warm, God bless, because I'm like, I don't want to be the crazy character that doesn't care about the cold. My character cares about the cold. So no, it was on those cold nights. It was very, very lovely. But it was just like I said, we made this town, this imaginary town, real. It was just everything from every eye, from the costumes to the costumes to the camera to the set. Everything was real, and this is real in my head.
I have to say that Kaylee was mad at me a lot of the time because I wanted to see her face and her hair, and she was always like, and I was like, Kaylee? And she was like, I know.
That was the one time I gave you a hard no, and it was like 15 below. I'm like, listen, we're shooting episode 5. I think they know what Navarro looks like. We're good.
But what Jodie is saying, which is perhaps the central piece of what we take away from the series, is what a joy it was to shoot. And I've been talking to the press and to people who have seen the series, and they go, how was it? And you know what? Yeah, it was tough. Yeah, it was cold. Best experience, best friends, best town, laughing throughout. It was, people say this all the time. This is true. We really, really have a beautiful time.
But also the gods were with us. I can't tell you how, usually things go wrong on films. And, you know, whether it's, you know, your set gets blown down, or you just have 3 days where you can't shoot, or you're out there and the whole thing gets obliterated. And the gods were with us, strangely. And I always say this to Mary Jo. I say it's because we had a tree. We had a tree planting ceremony at the beginning of the film, and I'm taking full credit for this. We had a tree planting ceremony, and we all the actors went up in trucks, and we went to the area where they plant the trees in Iceland, and we had hot chocolate and stuff, and we all held hands, and we said different prayers from all of our lives. We had some of us just made up prayers, and to honor our ancestors, and so that we could have a wonderful shoot. And guess what? We did. We didn't have we had really so many things could have gone wrong that didn't go wrong.
We also have mezcal at the end of every week, and I think that was
Yeah.
the reason.
I was
left out of
mezcal
that.
on Friday as well.
Have to make up.
Mezcal Friday.
So thank you guys, thank you all here. That's all we had for today.